Joining me now from Washington, D.C., contributing editor to Newsweek, Peter Roff. Peter, I have a feeling if Biden is actually going to be our next president, he's not going to be afraid to use his pen and his phone.
No, he's not, unless the Democrats can somehow gain control of the Senate, which I doubt they will be able to do. He will have his progressive impulses checked. It's going to be interesting to watch. And there are some things that he has indicated he could do that will push this country to the left.
What executive orders do you think he would take initially? I think there are a few that people have been talking about, such as things regarding the coronavirus pandemic. They're wondering if there'd be like some sort of national mask mandate, also rejoining the Paris Climate Accord. What are your predictions?
Well, I think Biden will put us back in the Paris Agreement, even though the U.S. has already met and exceeded the emissions targets that the Paris deal requires, while China, India, and the EU have not. So it's sort of meaningless, but it's kissy, nice, with the allies whose approval is so important to the international left. I think also he'll probably reverse the travel ban that President Trump immediately imposed, limiting access from people who live in countries where terrorists are allowed to roam free from coming to the U.S. Now, that's less worrisome now than it was or would have been 4 years ago, because Donald Trump smashed ISIS. So there are a lot fewer terrorists that can come over here, but I think that's high on the agenda. And I think that former Vice President Biden said that he would also put the critical race theory teaching in federal employees back in place, which is left-wing garbage that only serves to divide Americans more by putting us in groups rather than talking about the glory of this country and each person in it.
Yeah, not only is it left-wing garbage, but it's expensive, and the people who are teaching this race theory stuff are getting really rich, that's for sure. And also here at the Daily Caller, they're reporting that they believe that Biden would fund foreign groups advocating for abortion, and that's something that people were pretty up in arms about, rightfully so. It's like, why would we be funding abortions in other countries with taxpayer dollars?
Well, because we can't fund them here, thanks to the Hyde Amendment, which will stay in force for as long as the Republicans control the Senate, at least. But you know, this is quite a development for the nation's second Catholic president, if that's what Biden turns out to be. Because as far as I know, the Catholic Church still regards abortion as a mortal sin.
Yeah, and you're in Washington, D.C., and you know that there's been a lot of protest, and some people said, oh, well, if Biden's elected, that's all going to end. No, it's not. We already saw the protesters out in the streets demanding reparations now. And so the Biden campaign says that Biden is going to continue to support leftist policies. They're making the promises. How left do you think Biden will go? We know he's a leftist. We know Harris is a radical leftist. And the socialists of this country are going to hold them accountable.
The Biden people are already promising that Biden will deliver on the progressive agenda, even though Biden took great pains to deny in his debates with Donald Trump and in other places that he embraced it. He said, I am the Democratic Party. You may remember that famous remark. He disavowed the Sanders agenda. Now his campaign staff is telling the media that he's going to embrace the Sanders agenda. He does that at his own peril, because if there's one thing that did happen on Tuesday, the American people voted to reject the progressive agenda. They picked the most moderate, the Democrats picked the most moderate candidate for president. The Republicans picked up net state legislative chambers, net a governor, net seats in the House, held control of the U.S. Senate. This was not an affirmation of the AOC agenda. And I'll point out to you that if we presume that all the ballots that were cast were legitimate, it's 144,000 ballots. Joe Biden got million ballots, excuse me. Biden got 74 million. Trump got 70 million. That's not a big difference. No. This is not a mandate for Joe Biden and the progressive agenda.
And then think about everything that President Trump and the Republican Party have been up against when they're, battling with the mainstream media, with big tech, and all of that stuff really makes a difference. And I think it does influence voters. Well, Peter, we're totally out of time. Thank you.
Thanks, Steph.